Hola amigos, bienvenidos a mi casa. So this is a report for the last part of June. We've got a busy couple of weeks ahead. The things that we are looking at, literally within a span of days on top of each other, bang, 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 cough, 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 will be Mercury stationing retrograde on the 18th. Now, the thing I want you guys to note about this Mercury station retrograde is obviously we're feeling it a couple days before, but specifically, I want you to circle your calendars for June 19th and June 20th. These are big hotspot days for this Mercury station. So all sorts of mixoplistic shenanigans will be occurring on this day. Also, things of relative significance or import, things that are thumbtacked on the bulletin board that we need to pay attention to will be occurring around these 2 days. So not necessarily 18th, but 19th and 20th. On the 19th specifically in Washington, D.C. at 4 a.m., this is a significant time on that day. Make a note of that, and you may need to adjust the time for wherever you're at to get the same aspects for that day. And again, later that evening at midnight, just before it becomes the next day, so midnight, June 19th, or midnight starting June 20th is also the second part of the day. So June 19th, all day long, is going to be a heck of a day. And we're going to get into that in a second. The next day, immediately following that, we've got a new moon eclipse. The eclipse occurs on the 21st, not a scant, 4 days later? Now, this does a couple of things. While this particular eclipse is significant in its own right, oh my God, what this does is it puts rocket fuel into issues and matters that appear or are presented under this Mercury station. So the Mercury station retrograde that we're going to be dealing with on the 18th and looking for the 19th specifically to really pop. It's getting a lot of jet fuel propulsion. I am Buckaroo Banzai. Sorry, it's an old movie. From the eclipse a couple days later, because those few days before the eclipse, we are under the building tension, right, of the eclipse. So if you could imagine an eclipse like a soap bubble or a bubble gum bubble, where you blow, 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 and there's that point where the bubble gets so big, it's just almost at max stretch, right, just before it pops. This is what it feels like when we've got an eclipse building. So for those few days, some people say up to a week before the eclipse is official and the bubble bursts, right, and releases the tension, we're feeling it. So the Mercury stationing retrograde underneath that growing bubble of this particularly significant eclipse, separate from that, is a very big deal. So keep an eye on that. And then, because the show's not over yet, on June 25th, a scant 3 days later, Venus will station direct. Now, Venus station direct should bring us some good things, and it will. It will bring us some relief from our suffering, and it will bring us some positive changes of direction. However, we're still dealing with Mercury retrograde, and we're still under the auspices of this particularly huge bomb-dropping moon. And I don't mean bomb dropping in the literal sense. Now, to round out the month and to finish it, June 28th, not 3 days after Venus goes direct, Mars will enter Aries. So our troublemaker Mars will enter its most troublemaking sign, Aries, and start its passage or its journey to make all sorts of troublesome aspects to the Cancer and Capricorn planets in the sky. And this particular Mars ingress in Aries brings its own set of, challenges. All right, so a couple caveats here. Now, I'm going to do this very briefly. This is going to be a really short video. More of the in-depth information is going to be on the blog and on the podcast, because then I can concentrate on what I'm trying to say and edit as I go along. And I got a lot to say. All right. And before I forget, just a reminder, in case you missed it or you forgot it, if you go back to the year ahead reports for 2020, one of the things, earthquake! One of the things that I was making very clear through the looking at the whole year as a general overview, August was going to be hell month. It was going to be a huge hotspot, and I made it a point to warn you guys, and I'm doing it again now. You want to take care of any major issues you need to take care of. So in terms of, for instance, heating and cooling and air conditioning, stuff like that, make sure you've got operational things working. Anything that could break down mechanically or structurally or systemically. You want to make sure that you've got it up and working. Work out the problems now and get it fixed. This also includes your physical and your mental health. If this is a financial issue for you, because, pandemic, economy, and all that sort of stuff, this is definitely the time to start throwing things overboard and lightening the load on that dinghy you're rowing in. Because by the time we get to August, it's really, really going to be messy, right? So better to be prepared now for the absolute possible worst than to hope and pray it'll kind of go away and stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and find yourself caught short, in the middle of it, or, caught in the middle of a huge storm at sea, and an overweighted dinghy. And so there you go. All right. And if you haven't read, or if you haven't listened to the reports for the last half of summer and going through the rest of 2020, this would be a great time to go back and listen to it. And I am thrilled to say that all reports from all the four corners, at least here in the U.S., about the predictions and prognostications moving forward are in keeping with the timing that I'm seeing astrologically. So astrology does provide. All right, now. Mercury station retrograde, June 18th, 2020. Again, June 19th is the day to watch. Also, be mindful that June 21st, not a couple days later, we've got the official bubble bursting eclipse. Okay, so those days between the 18th, when Mercury officially stations retrograde, to the 21st, when that eclipse officially is in exact aspect, that's a hard road to hoe that we're going to get through. So, as per usual, when we have major aspects like this, expect irrational people to be more irrational, expect difficult, demanding people to be more difficult and demanding, and expect your garden variety troublemakers and provocateurs, to be even more so, right? Because one of the things that we know is that just like animals can sense a storm coming, even though they can't necessarily articulate what's going on, or they can sense major catastrophic changes like tsunamis and earthquakes and volcanoes, they can feel it coming and will respond to it, even though they can't articulate what exactly they're preparing for. Human beings are a lot the same way. So a lot of the weird, unpleasant behavior you see around major planetary changes is because we are all still tuned in to the cosmos. And some people may sense it coming and not have the ability to adjust their sails, or temper themselves, or kind of, surf on the surface of that without getting sucked into like the crazy thing. So they get a lot more anxiety about this unknown thing they can sense is coming, but they don't know what it is, and tend to act out like crazy people, or like people with limited emotional, psychological, or social tools. And that's why you get these yahoos on the road trying to run people down, right? The weather starts to change and suddenly they think you're a speed racer on the road, and all sort of stuff. So the 19th, 21st, we're going to see a lot more of that, because apparently we have a lot more people who are out of touch than we realized. Also, for those of you who are history buffs, in case you didn't know and you haven't heard, here in the United States, our race war baiting administration, and many of us are completely convinced this is what they're trying to set up. They're doing a Trump rally, and a giant cheerleading ego celebration for our illustrious bunker hiding coward in chief. I don't like this man, and I never did. So no apologies for what I'm saying. But they're doing a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma on June 19th. So for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know, because this is, this is all kind of new to me, right? And there are two things that are significant about June 19th, which also turns out to be the same day I'm saying mark on your calendars. two things are significant. June 19th is the day that the last of the slaves were told that they were free in Texas. So in the entire country, the last place where the news was delivered, you are officially free and no longer live in slavery, occurred June 19th in Texas by a general who, it took him a couple of days after the thing was signed to actually get there to deliver the news. So in Black American culture, June 19th is a day of special significance and celebration, and it's called Juneteenth, right? So there's that. Tulsa, Oklahoma is particularly important because Tulsa, Oklahoma, back before we had desegregation, when whites and blacks didn't associate with each other. So the slaves were freed. So Black Americans were no longer slaves, but they also weren't allowed to integrate into society. Or do business with, or intermarry, or any of those things, right? So any support and work that had to be done, they had to do amongst themselves because white people weren't having any parts of that. You stay on your side of town, buddy. So there's a neighborhood called Greenwood. Look this up. It's fascinating stuff. And I did hear about this a long time ago from somebody, and I had no idea. And I was in my 40s when I heard about this. In Greenwood, Oklahoma, the Black community worked amongst themselves to build up their neighborhood or their community, and did such a phenomenal job of building an affluent, functional, really growing microeconomy in their neighborhood or in their culture. Because remember, this is before desegregation. This is when they had to be separate. That it was affectionately called Black Wall Street by the people around them, up to and including having their own, pretty sure they had their own banks and banking systems, right? It was amazing stuff, really, really impressive stuff. And of course, the hateful minority around them, the king of butthurts, how dare other people do better than I have, even though I've had more privilege and opportunity than they did, right? You know who these people are, they still exist, right? Oh, damn minorities, immigrants, Buddy, you grew up here and you learned the language from birth. You've had it the easiest path upward forward. If other people are doing well, having learned this language as adults, as hard as this language is to learn, and have successfully made businesses in areas where people are hostile to them, your lack of success is not their fault. Just saying, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow, but we've all got to take responsibility for our own lack of success in life. With that said, the hateful minority around, or majority, actually in that case, back in the day, around Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, decided that this was just not right. Just ain't right that these black folks should have all this money and success, or however they talk out there, right? So they massacred the community. They went in and burned down the buildings and killed almost everyone in that community. It was a massacre. It was a full-blown massacre, and they literally razed the ground and burned down the buildings and destroyed everything. So the race riot, which is really a racially based massacre, a mass genocide, occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was specific to Black Wall Street. So our administration choosing to have a Trump rally with all that it's known for and all the personality it is known to attract, and the people who are most loyal to him being the most passionately racist among our numbers, being held on Juneteenth and in Tulsa, Oklahoma, home of Black Wall Street, and this horrible massacre is of no small significance. So the thing about it, of course, we know the president is not bright. So he doesn't know the Constitution. We're pretty sure he doesn't know Black history. So this would not have been his idea, although this is a very specific and deliberate choice of places to go to hold a rally. So we're pretty sure that Stephen Miller, that Nazi ghoul in charge in his administration, is responsible for this, and many others who are also part of that ilk. All right. So there you go. There's your interesting sidebar about why June 19th is significant, at least here in the U.S. So I thought that was interesting when that all popped up. So because the charts are there, the aspects are there, they've been there all this time, and we knew, because I've had these charts out since the beginning of the month. I've just been really busy. I'm so sorry. Fighting with people about wearing their masks correctly over their nose. So these aspects in there. And then, of course, this comes up in the news. And it's like, oh, my God, right? Wow. So significant stuff. And by the way, folks, this is not wearing a mask correctly. This is not wearing a mask correctly. that's you being a douchebag and potentially infecting everyone around you. If you breathe through it, you got to cover it. And last note, because these are actual conversations I've had, a motorcycle helmet with a shield is not a mask. It's a helmet. I realize, special ed, you need a helmet, but it's still not a mask. Got to put a mask on. The other is, no, you flaming dotard, HIPAA is not a medical condition. Actual conversation, I can't wear the mask over my nose. I have HIPAA. It's a medical condition. And lastly, if you claim to have asthma, you might want to claim to have asthma to the person who doesn't actually also really have it, because, you know, some of us actually do have asthma. And I wear my mask 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day because I have to. I have no problem breathing. It will not kill you to pull the mask up over your nose for 5 minutes. Just saying. We got a whole lot of special people where I live, and I can only imagine it's even worse in places like Texas, Arizona, Florida. God knows. God knows. Okay, so anyway, back to the astrology. So that's our Mercury station. Now, the new moon eclipse that occurs a couple days later at 0 degrees Cancer. Here's why this is important. 0 degrees Cancer is on the 90-degree dial. It's on the Aries point. The Aries point is 0 degrees Aries. Now, the thing about the Aries point is that the Aries point is a sensitive point, but it's not, again, like with everything in astrology, it's not a singular thing that's going to predict anything. All right, but it will, like jet fuel, it will propel something into much more visibility. So planets sitting at 0 degrees cardinal signs, Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, and Aries at 0 degrees will likely be much more visible and have more probability of becoming famous or well-known, right, to the world around them at some point in life. Events occurring at an Aries point, at a 0 degrees Aries point, also typically have to do with events that could potentially pivot, right, the tipping point that pivot things and literally move entire paradigm shifts forward. Because the Aries point represents the end, the absolute end of the absolute everything of the past and a brand new clean slate, we've never been here before, beginning. So remember that, those words, we've never been here before, beginning. Okay, and all the history is literally baggage we've jettisoned a while back. So it's nothing, just nothingness, and the point of creation, because the 0 Aries point is the point of creation, right, where there is nothing behind you and nothing in front of you, and everything is starting from nothingness, right? We've never been here before. So this eclipse is occurring at the 0 Aries point. Oh, also, if you have planets at 28 or 29 degrees Pisces, this is a hidden aspect. If you have planets at 20 to 29 Pisces, you are also sitting on the Aries point. So people with those last 2 degrees of Pisces, not 3, but the last 2, and even 2 is generous. So typically it's 29, but 28, 29 degrees Pisces, you're sitting on the back side of the Aries point, which means you're still there. It's not obvious. So the same rules apply to you. There's a possibility that in your lifetime, you will become very, very visible or very well known for something. Well, you know, whether you want to be or not. So if it has to be, make sure it's something you want to be known for. Sorry. All right. So this particular Aries point has a lot of... Aries point, this eclipse, this Cancer eclipse. So let me just do it for the United States, because this is what it's set up for, is Washington, D.C. You can adjust this to the charts for wherever you're at. But ultimately, what's interesting about this is in the United States, this Cancer eclipse is occurring in our national second house, right? Or in the second house of D.C., which indicates that we should have some major economic stuff coming up, like pivotal economic stuff occurring or becoming a topic of discussion as a result of this eclipse. So remember, we're feeling it back as soon as the 18th and 19th because the Mercury station retrograde is pulling this in. Now, eclipses are in effect for 6 months. This will span out and wheel for at least 6 months. So we're going to be seeing a whole lot of that going on. Just the way we have a lot of discussion about resources and the economy and money and finances and people being fed and women, right, that are critical at this time. and will play a pivotal role in what's to move forward. Now, with that said, Venus rules the chart for Washington, D.C., where this eclipse chart is set up. Venus will go direct a few days later, like 4 days later on June 25th. So we can expect whatever it is that this eclipse is promising or suggesting to us in terms of decisions that need to be made for finances and economy, we can expect to see some of that coming up, I would assume, to our benefit or to some of our relief a few days later. However, Mercury is retrograde, so whatever it is may not last or will not stand. There's still many changes before this is going on. The other thing to remember about eclipses, things started under the shadow of an eclipse or the umbrella of an eclipse are unpredictable. Things will not necessarily go according to plan. This is made even doubly so with Mercury retrograde on top of everything else. So for those of you who are making plans, make plans with generous plan B, plan C, plan D, and pick alternate plans, many of them. Pick your own ending stories, because the eclipse creates a window of instability, so things don't go according to plan or intention, because there are divine forces at work. The fickle finger of fate is at play here. And Mercury is retrograde. So Mixoplistic, the mischief maker, is also at force, in legion at this time. So there's that. Now, in terms of our personal lives and moving forward, things are important. The things that I want you to understand is that with this Cancer eclipse, there's a lot of Saturn energy here. There's a lot of Saturn energy. I know you don't want to hear that. So the golden rule in doing the right thing is of more importance now than ever before. So kindness is the way to go. Kindness and generosity and standing up for other people and doing what you can to right the wrongs in the world. The real wrongs, not the imaginary ones, right? So if you're worried about, as an example, if you are worried about people, having late-term abortions, perhaps the smart, intelligent thing to do would be to support reproductive rights so that accidental pregnancies become less of an issue, or unwanted, unplanned pregnancies become less of an issue. Perhaps we should look at increasing the ability for people to adopt the children that already exist, right? And making adoption more streamlined or whatever. So yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, we have to pick our battles in life. So if you have to pick a battle, pick the one that's going to take care of the problem immediately in front of you, not the boogeyman in the closet. I'm just saying. All right. And there's more about this eclipse, and I will be in writing it on the podcast. Again, it's a lot of information. We got a lot going on these last couple of weeks. Now, 4 days later, we move into the Venus station direct. Now, Venus station direct should give us some relief. Yay! Ooh, we could use that, right? So people will at least have some of their sense of humor back, which we're okay with. We're okay with. With this particular Venus station direct, again, issues with the common man and the common good and the populace, and what is it? What's good for the group versus what's good for the individual, with the group winning, is going to be a big key topic of conversation. So group activities, group allegiances, group unity, community, neighborhoods, the common man, Joe Pedestrian, all of these things are going to be the things that work best right now. And Venus going direct and enshrining Saturn while it does it will allow us some opportunities to get out and socialize and to get in touch with our neighbors and people that we enjoy spending time around, and meeting new people that share our visions and our goals. So take advantage of this opportunity to get out and get some fresh air and meet some sympathetic souls and some kindred spirits. Please wear your masks. And enjoy it. Take care of your mental health right now, because we are going to need it by the time we get down to August. So while this is going on, 4 days later, on June 28th, 3 days later, Mars will enter Aries. Oh my God. So Mars hits that 0 degrees Aries point, that Aries point, on June 28th at 5 a.m. in Washington, D.C. So things that we are promised with this eclipse, we should definitely see some indication of what part of that is on the 28th. You betcha. Now, this particular Mars ingress into Aries is extremely important because it sets up a T-square in the chart. So this is a really active freaking Mars. And it will involve the Sun, Mercury, and the Moon. So both of the natal lights are involved, and Mercury, which has just gone retrograde and part of this eclipse, is also involved in this T-square. So the pressure valve on this. So if you had all pressure cookers, if you're familiar with pressure cookers, have a pressure valve that releases just a little bit of pressure so you can cook under pressure without exploding the pot. When you have T-squares, the open end of the T-square is the pressure valve, right? That's where that little bit of pressure gets out so it doesn't explode and get completely destroyed. In this particular case, the pressure valve for this T-square involving that Mars ingress into Aries is going to be in Capricorn, early Capricorn. So the government and leadership and grandparents and old people and everything that comes under Saturnine Capricorn rule, right, will be the point of release or relief in small doses to keep the pressure from getting to be too out of control. So we should see some pressure put on the government or on our leaders, our managers, our supervisors, our structures, our systems, people who are in positions to make the rules for the rest of us. We should be seeing a lot more pressure on them to do something to help keep the lid from blowing off. It's going to be intense. This last 2 weeks are going to be very intense. Another day that I want you to circle on your calendar is going to be June 27th at 4 p.m. Now, this is set for Washington, D.C., so you might have to adjust your time zone based on your location, or your time based on your location and time zone to get the same chart for 4 p.m. Washington, D.C. On this particular day and time, which is the day before Mars goes officially into Aries, the day before, late that night, we should see some indication of what this Mars ingress into Aries is going to give us. So that's pretty gnarly, not fun, very challenging. So for those of you who are out and about or have to work with crazy people, do be careful, especially the day before the Mars ingress. And by all means, take extra precautions when you're out. If you can stay home and kind of hang out and avoid people, that would be best too. So that's our mini report for the last half of June. We got some major stuff coming. The more in-depth examination of each of these planetary cycles will be in the blog and on the podcast. Give it a couple days. Today's the 14th. I promise to have it up before Mercury goes retrograde. I promise to have it up by the end of Tuesday. I've got some stuff I've got to do. And Tuesday evening will be as soon as I can get anything posted for you guys. But just wanted to get this out there because this is what we got cooking. And to remind you, if you have not seen the year ahead report for 2020, go back and review it, starting with the summer moving forward, because August, we need to prepare now for August. So this next couple of weeks are going to be challenging in and of themselves. July, we might have a bit of a break, but August is really when that 18-wheeler is like driving down the thing at high speed. We don't want to be in front of it. So there you go. You guys hang in there. Please, for the love of freaking God, wear your masks and don't take excuses from people. HIPAA is not a medical condition. Asthma does not prevent you from comfortably wearing a mask over your nose. And if it does, you should have some indication to give EMTs and life support specialists like paramedics, like in a medic alert bracelet, because when they give you oxygen, you big dill hole, you're going to have to wear a mask over your nose. To my knowledge and to the knowledge of my friend who's an anesthesiologist, we've had this conversation a lot. Neither one of us can find any references anywhere in any medical journals or publications or studies or anything. And we've searched PubMed, or I've searched PubMed. He's gone through medical school extensively. So, there is no known medical condition that prevents you from wearing a mask correctly over your nose, not under it. And finally, the mask is to protect us from you, because there's this thing called asymptomatic where you don't know. You're running around transmitting the virus to people for 2 weeks after you've been infected. So if you're okay being Typhoid Mary and Typhoid Marty, by all means, you should do that with other people who think that's okay. But for the rest of us who have older people at home, who have people at home that have real medical conditions, like family members going through chemo, people who have MS, people who have all manner of medical issues that make them highly sensitive to respiratory contagions, people with COPD. This is not okay. We don't want your virally infected hot breath infecting us so that we can take it home and kill our family members because of you. That's why we all wear masks. It's not to protect ourselves. It's mostly to protect other people from us in case we're infected and don't know it. So don't be an inconsiderate baboon and cover your damn face. And for the record, folks, if you think you're so cute, and I've had that too, where the girls come through, or the women come through with all their perfectly on point makeup, who can't bring themselves to cover their face, because none of us should be denied their beauty. None of us should be denied their majestic beauty. No, sweetheart. Sister, you're not that cute. And I got news for you, kids. You're not that cute. Your nose is even less cute. And I really don't want to see your naked nose, so cover it up. All right, so hopefully this did not offend you. If it did, please, by all means, unsubscribe. This is not the channel for you. Again, I will put a link to the blog post and the podcast in the description box below when the posts are up. So please come back to the channel and take a look in a couple days, and we'll have the detailed interpretations of what's going on in writing, or by podcast. You can listen to it while you're doing other stuff. And that's it. You guys hang in there.